having you guys get stuff done on a real assignment rather than give you little assignments along the way or fake assignments along the way for your exercises. So for example, when we get to the like interior night rendering, I could give you a sample file and I could say, okay, put your lights in and we're going to learn how to set up the lights in a certain way and whatever. And then you guys do it on your own. Or I can have you start building your final now. And then when we go to do the interior night rendering, you're actually working on your final. You're putting the lights in the building and you're getting them ready on your actual building so that they're ready. So my goal is to double down on this stuff. So as we progress forward and as you learn more and more and get better results, you're actually working on your final, which gives you a better final in the end. So even though it seems early to give you the final, it's actually an appropriate time. So what we're going to do, and I alluded to this earlier, is that this week, I'm not going to have our traditional check-ins. So that gives you, theoretically, an extra 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more, to actually work on the final, which is what I want you to do. So I want you to spend that extra time working on your final, because the more of the base model that you get done now, the easier it's going to be later on. And the truth is that we'll spend maybe 2 or 3 weeks kind of really chewing on the model itself. And then after that, we start getting into, you know, lighting, where it's nighttime settings, and those kinds of things make a big difference if we're actually working on your model. So you want it to be as done as possible so that when we get to those pieces, it's easier. It also makes the overall end of the class easier, because you've already pre-done a lot of the final work, and it's really just about fine-tuning and doing the renderings. So this week, I'm going to give you that. We'll go over that assignment in just a little bit. We won't have our traditional check-ins, but I will stay around after lecture, you know, for 45 minutes, an hour, until you guys are done with your questions. So if anybody has any questions or you're struggling with something, even though we don't have check-ins, just stick around after lecture and we'll go through whatever your questions are and make sure that they get answered and what have you.
Okay, yeah.
So that's kind of the plan for this class. My earbuds just got a ding saying I'm going to lose microphone or they're going to go dead. So hold on one second while I switch to the computer audio, and then we'll get started with the actual demo for today.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I apparently should have charged those last night. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for you. All right. And as I said before, I don't have my multiple monitors and my good mic. So thanks for bearing with me while I work on just my laptop today. So I also won't have the chat window as open. So if there's something that you're running into that you need some extra help with, or you want to talk about something specific, let me know, and we will just verbally speak up as opposed to saying it in the chat. Okay, so let me pull up, let's go here to our assignments, and then let me pull up 205, which is the final assignment. And we'll just kind of give a brief overview of this. And this assignment is one that I've done many years now, and I think it's a really good one. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be designing and building a 500 square foot artist's retreat. And I set this up in kind of broad terms so that you can get what you need out of it. Some people in this class are toward the end of their architectural career, and they want to spend more time developing a really strong studio piece that's going to go into their portfolio. Other students are earlier in their career and they just are trying to survive, and so they want a little bit more flexibility. So what this is you could take it in the direction where you pick an artist and you're designing, let's say you're doing Richard Serra, who does those beautiful Corten sculptures. Well, maybe if you're designing for him, you're going to do it in his style and really adapt your design toward that. If you don't feel like extending it that far and really creating a big theme to it, you could pick yourself as an artist. There's nothing wrong with that, in which case you're designing what you want. So there's built-in flexibility here, depending on what it is you need or want out of this class. But regardless, you're going to be setting up a very, very small retreat. 500 square feet is small. The reason that it's so small is because I want you to be able to really thoroughly develop it, get good amount of detail in it, such that it's a good project, rather than, oh, I'm building 3,000 square feet and I can't put nearly enough detail in it. So really what this comes down to is it's like 2 or 3 rooms. It's not a lot of space. And you can spend time really thinking about, how does this building work? Where do the windows go? What's the level of detail that I can put in? And if you look at some of the previous renderings done in other classes, they're really, really high quality. And that's what I'm after. There are 2 different sites, and I'll show you those sites in just a little bit. One is up in the mountains near Lake Tahoe. The other site is on the coast near Tamales Bay, near Point Reyes. And so you can pick either one of those sites. They're both very loaded sites. You couldn't actually build in either one. They are also both remote sites. So they're not like accessible by road. We're not going to have garages or anything like that. It's meant to be this little tiny retreat cabin. So it's not, you know, for the sake of building argument, we don't have a budget. So if you really needed something that you couldn't like carry to the location, we could helicopter it in or something. So there's a way for you to get what you need from a building supply, but it's really meant to be remote. And that's really the point. So you're going to be designing this little building. And then we're going to model that building. We're going to take that building as a block and bring it to the site itself. So I'll give you the site file, you'll integrate it into the site, and then we'll be doing some very important renderings of it. So as part of your final assignment, you're going to do 4 renderings. You can do more, but there are 4 required renderings. We're going to have an exterior daytime rendering, so with sun. We're going to have an exterior nighttime rendering, which means there'll be artificial light in your building that's spilling out on the landscape. We'll do an interior daytime rendering, so sun outside the windows, terrain, etc. And we'll do an interior nighttime rendering where it's night outside. So there's 4 required renderings as part of this. Then we're going to add 2 line drawings to it. And this is, you've done all this work to create a beautiful 3D model. And this is kind of the extension of Rhino. What can we do with it? Once you have this beautiful model, how do we create the line drawings for it? How do we create a plan, a section, and an elevation? You're only going to pick 2. So you'll do a plan and then you'll do a section or an elevation, probably. If you really wanted to do the elevation and the section, I'd probably accept those. But the point is that we will do all 3 in lab, but you'll pick the 2 that you like the most. And we'll use those 2 as actual line drawings. We'll do a little bit of post-processing in Illustrator. If you've never done Illustrator, don't worry about it. I'll walk you through exactly what you need to do. But it's designed to really get a good quality drawing out of your Rhino file. So we're doing lots of renderings plus those 2 drawings. You will not be turning in a physical model. So we're not going to 3D print it. We're not going to laser cut it. None of that. It's just the renderings and the line drawings. That's it. All of that, so those 6 items are going to be due on Monday, May 16th, which is the Monday of the last week of class. And I set that up so that you guys can get it out of the way and be done and then focus on your other classes. I've had students in the past who struggled with it being on the first day. If you're struggling with it being due, then let's talk and figure out what your schedule is. Maybe I can make some accommodations for you. But the goal is to try to get it done and finished so that you can walk away and have time for the rest of your work. I do have some tutorials that will help you when we get to those line drawings. You can see right here listed assembly 10.7, 10.8, and 10.9. Those really help walk through exactly the steps involved. So don't stress out about those line drawings too much yet. So like I said, they're all due on the 16th. And, you know, that's a long time. It's a month and a half away. So we've got plenty of time to work on it. But like I said before, there's a lot of detail that needs to go in. And there's a lot like let's say the line drawings, for example. You want all of the model to be done before you start doing the line drawings. You want the model to be done before you start cutting the sections. You really want the model to be done before you start doing all the rendering. So we're loading the model building to now, the 3D model, so that you can really concentrate on it. So this week is a big push for getting your work done. And that's why I went ahead and canceled the check-ins, because I don't want you wasting your time doing that. I want you really focusing on building this week. So that being said, let's flip over to exercise 218. This is basically the beginning steps of what we're doing. So what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to the two sites. I'll introduce those in just a second. And then once you kind of have a general idea of the site, I want you to think about building your little artist retreat. So think about where you want the windows to be, how you want it to be laid out, and you're going to build that in a file. That artist retreat file is then going to be used as a block reference, and we're going to bring that block into the site. It's in the Tahoe example, it's a little bit more complicated because of the Tahoe site is a little bit more complicated. I will walk through that in detail on Wednesday, about how you bring those two in. That's what Wednesday is going to be about. So today is about a single file, modeling that file, and getting it ready for Wednesday. Okay. I've asked you at the end here to perform a quick rendering. If you don't have materials yet, you can do a screen capture, that's fine. So this is not meant to be fully resolved. It's meant to show me a work in progress. That's what we're after as this part. Down here, I do have the zip file with site information. So we can go ahead and right click on it and save link as. I'm going to put it into my folder for today. Let's go here. And we'll go ahead and save that. Now remember, this didn't download all the way because I have to choose to keep it. So we'll make sure I choose that up arrow and choose keep. And then let's go ahead and show it. It is a zip file, so I'm going to need to extract it before I can actually work with it. So let's go ahead and click on extract all. And I'll click on extract. There we go. So this file contains some information. There's some sites that are there if you need it. There is also Kml files. Those are the files that will open Google Earth. That'll show you each of the sites. There's some AutoCAD files if you needed those for some reason. I don't think you will, but they're all there, and that's for your reference. We'll come back to this. The only thing we're really going to work with today are the Kml files. So let's look at where these two sites are. I have Google Earth loaded up here, I think. There we go. So this is earth.google.com, and many of you have looked at this before. I will show you each of the two sites. In general terms, we're located right here at DVC. We're going to be working up over in here for the coast. And then we're going to work right over here near Tahoe for the mountain setup. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. If you want to open the Kml files to see the exact sites, you're going to come down here to the projects section. We're going to click on the open. And we have the ability to import a Kml file from my computer. So I'll click on that. And let's get into that folder from today. And there it is. So we have two, potential site 1 and potential site 2. Let's pick potential site 1. Go ahead and say open. This is the one that's up in near Lake Tahoe. All right. So I've picked this location, which is actually fairly near to South Lake Tahoe. You guys have been up to Lake Tahoe. So there's our view out. It's obviously, it's a loaded site. We have a great view kind of to the northeast from this particular vantage point. This ridge here is your location. So let me flip this around so we can kind of take a look here at it. There you go. That's our ridge. You can ignore the exact placement of the pin, but we're looking to build somewhere either in the flat part up at the top here or somehow in kind of the edge area or the bowl. That's your building site. And so I've set these up. They're very similar, even though they're geographically far apart, because they each have kind of a flat place on top and then they have kind of a cliff edge. So as you start to work with those, you can select it. The good news about Google Earth is we can kind of spin around here and we can get a pretty good sense for what the view is, what you're looking at, etc. So that is the first site right there on that edge. Let's go ahead and close that. Let me open another one here. So let me go ahead and let's go back, sorry. New project. All right, let's import. And we're going to choose potential building site 2. And I'll click open. So we'll jump back out from the Tahoe area, and we're going to jump into what's called Tamales Point. Let me zoom out just so we can get a little bit more reference here. If we were to back up, there's San Francisco, there's our Bay Area. So it's a little bit north of us. Point Reyes, you guys may be familiar with, is this out here. We're looking right there on this point. So like I said, this is similar to the last site where we have a flat bluff up on top. So we have a flat piece there. Then we have some cliffs that drop down, in this case, into the ocean. You can see those cliffs there. So that's looking inland. If we were to flip this around, we'd be looking out at the ocean. So you've got your sunset view looking out that direction. You could choose anywhere up on top of this bluff. Sorry, let me back up here. There we go. You can choose anywhere up on top of this bluff if you want, or you can choose to be over the side in the cliffs. We're not overly worried about engineering and how you would support the building. So we're more concerned with the building itself. So this is the second site. Again, they're accessible by hiking. So we're not going to be driving here. There's no garages or anything like that. And you're going to build your little retreat out there. So in either case, you have a similar site condition. It's just whether you want to be designing for a mountain retreat or you want to be designing more for an ocean setup there. Okay. So those are the two building sites. You guys will start working today, designing your building. Like I said, it's 500 square feet. I have some suggestions here. You might consider right here, consider having a sleeping space, a cooking space, maybe a bathroom, meditation space, artist studio. Those are ideas. So they don't have to be separate rooms, but I'd say this is kind of a 2-3 room setup, maybe 4-room setup. The other key to this is that you really have control over what you model and what you show me. So you may or may not fully model the bathroom, for example, because you might not render the bathroom. But we want to think about what is it that you're trying to show. Maybe it's art on the wall. We'll talk about how do we render art on the wall. And again, that depends on who the artist is and what you're trying to set up for them. Okay, so that being said, we've gone through what I need to go through today. Excuse me. What we'll do on Wednesday is we'll take the building that you create today and we'll bring it into the site. So I'll do a lot more demo work. I'll take a building and I'll bring it into the site. I'll show you how it works. Actually, I'll do it twice. I'm going to bring one into the coastal scene and I'll do another one where I bring it into the mountain scene and I'll kind of work them together so that you can see them in both contexts and how I would go about doing it. So I will go ahead at this point, unless anybody has questions, I will let those of you who want to leave. I will also stick around for the next, 30, 45 minutes or whatever, in case any of you have any questions. I know some of you already indicated you had questions. Some of you in chat have told me you have questions, so that's great. Just stick around and we'll go through it. Remember, please spend the extra time. I'm giving this to you not to give you the time off. I'm giving it to you so that you can spend that extra time developing this model. The better developed it is now, the easier it's going to be later on. So this is intentional, and I really want you to spend that extra time this week. Does anybody have any questions before I let you go?
Just to clarify, so today we're really just working on building the space.
Exactly, Naomi.
Okay.
The whole goal today is to build the space. So
Okay.
don't worry. I mean, you obviously have to be a little bit aware of, what's the site, and that's why I showed you what the site was. So you can kind of globally think about, okay, I'm going to have some views. I want this to be generally oriented towards some views or whatever, but this is about building the space. And then on Wednesday, we'll take the space that you built and bring it into the site.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
Perfect. Do I have any other questions?
Sure, just want to clarify. So we're not having group meetings today.
So we will
like,
not have our group
okay.
check-ins today. We won't have any on Wednesday either. So
Yes, sir.
I to make it fair for everybody, I've canceled them for the whole week so that everybody is on the same playing field. So I want you to spend that extra time working, but if you need help or have questions, I'm going to stick around after the lecture each day, to both today and on Wednesday. So you still have access, but there's no role being taken, no mandatory requirement for you to be here.
Yes, sir. All right, got it. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Brianna, you're saying that the Tahoe site has a tricky component. So this is, well, I'll go over it in depth on Wednesday. The tricky part is that in the coast, we have the ocean to one side. And so the ocean's easy to mimic because it's flat. It goes off to the horizon and we can create a rendering where the ocean goes off to the horizon. In the mountain setup, we have a bunch of mountains that are off to the horizon, and you have to have enough sight so that when you're rendering, you can see the mountains way off in the distance. And so that makes a really large file to work with. So rather than just bringing like in the coastal one, you'll bring your building into a block that is the site and it contains the ocean and whatever. In the mountain one, the site is so big that there's actually a middle file. So you'll bring your block into the middle file, which contains a piece of the site. And then you'll also bring the Tahoe terrain, which is a really huge file, in as a block reference too. So you'll be bringing it into one file, and then you'll bring all the terrain into that file as well. It saves with how it all works. So it's tricky, but it's not that bad. And it's something that I will walk you through specifically when you get there. So don't be afraid. If you want to do that site, don't be afraid. I'll still get you that site. It's just some technical challenges because of the breadth of the mountains that you want to be able to see in the renderings.
I just had another question about that actually.
Sure.
Do we have to follow like a set floor plan layout, or do
Nope.
we kind of just, okay.
No,
Great.
it is entirely up to you. So however you feel, I mean, there have been people in the past who have done little mini houses where they really like break it out into separate rooms.
Mhm.
There have been people who have just done like a big room and everything happens in that one big room.
Okay.
There are people that get really adventurous and have like, cantilevered spaces up on stilts and,
Okay.
it's designed to be very open-ended. I had somebody, this was a long time ago, I had somebody who really wanted to do a tree house. And it was this house that was clinging on the side of a redwood tree. And so we
Okay.
worked through how to do that. And it's totally different. And, the sites don't technically have redwood trees in them, but that was what she really wanted to do. So we found a way to set that up. So it's supposed to be set up that way, where you have the flexibility to build what it is that you're interested in.
Okay.
I've found in this that it's far more exciting and you learn a lot more when I give you more freedom to design something you're interested in.
Yes.
And that's there are people that are fundamentally interested in beach living, and there are people that love the mountains and hiking and whatever, and they would want to design in the mountains. So I'm trying to give you both options.
Okay.
What I'm distinctly not giving you is some kind of a city setup.
Right.
So we're out in nature, we're far away from everything. That's consistent, partly because we just did the rendering in San Francisco of
Mhm.
the skyscraper. So I'm really trying to no, we're not doing that. We're doing something totally different. But you have the flexibility to choose where you want and how it's set up and what the floor plan looks like, etc.
Okay, perfect.
Is height considered or included in the square footage?
No. So
Okay.
height's fine. And you could you could theoretically have a really tall tower, for example, and that would be legal. The other thing that doesn't count is outside space. So if you want to have some patios or decks or anything like that, that's legal too.
Oh.
So that doesn't count towards your 500 square feet. The goal here is, and you may have noticed, Michelle, from like this morning where you're doing the 1,000 square feet in the other class,
Mhm.
this one scaled back even more because I don't want it to be so big that you can't model a high level of detail.
Yeah.
So this is really, it's about spending the time creating a high level of detail because that's going to make your rendering so much better. If you make it too big, you can't put the detail in and then it doesn't look good. So we want, keep everything small. So if you want a patio or something, for example, that's fairly easy to add. It's a patio surface, it's some retaining walls, like, okay, you can add some square footage there pretty easily. So I don't count that toward your 500 square feet. So things outside are legal. That would mean that if you wanted like a living roof on your building, for example, you wanted to inhabit the roof, or it was a deck or something, that's okay too. It doesn't count.
I mean, yeah,
The
that.
enclosed space does count.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.